My name is Christopher Walsh. I'm Vice President, Information Security Officer at Itaú Corbanca, New York branch. I became familiar with AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer way back in 2004, actually. I was trying to do some independent consulting, and part of that is a good firewall review, so I started to look for tools. And that's when I had my first discussion with AlgoSec. Since then, I've used it at a couple of different organizations, including the one where I work now. And it's been quite helpful with making sure that our firewall configuration is all that it should be. We're starting to grow into that. Our primary purpose right now is the Firewall AlgoSec Analyzer, so that we can ensure that our rules are nice and tight. We also use the configuration report to make sure that the device, the firewall configuration is nice and tight. We're starting to use modeling. I forget exactly the name within the product, but the firewall, the AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer, enables us to input details about what we would like to do to see what firewall changes would be required, if any, but also if we're having problems with getting an application running across the network, we can use that to establish what firewall rules might be giving us problems. Well, as a small branch office focused on wholesale banking, we have a very flat network that we're trying to improve upon. Over the last course of the year, everything's flat, everything accessible, so now we're breaking into VLAN segmentation, and that's when the Firewall Analyzer will really come into good use, because it'll help us to limit the traffic to only what's necessary. We have some cloud, right? Our core banking is with a different organization. We might say that's cloud. A couple of other treasury applications, in the cloud rather. But a fair amount of our network is within our data center, within our office. So we have a hybrid model. We're very simple. Really, the benefit of AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer right now is to give us skills that we don't already have with our people, but also when we get into our periodic reviews, enables us to do it with the staff we have instead of adding additional staff, something that we're not able to do. That's controlled in the head office in Chile, so we need to make the best use of the best tools to secure our environment with a minimal number of people. The ones indeed that are the most valuable are our rules too permissive? Based on previous human review of rules, very cursory. Yeah, we know why we do this one, but we don't get into the details. Is the rule nice and tight? So what the Firewall Analyzer lets us do is, first of all, understand the risks presented by our rules. The tool does a calculation of all the traffic that could be allowed, and we can match that to whether it should be allowed. The other thing that we've recently started to do, only about 100 days ago, is to collect syslog events from the firewall that now tell us whether the rules that might be well configured are actually being used by people, by traffic. And so our next step will be to start to eliminate well-formed rules that just aren't needed anyway. It's perfect in one place. So if we think about separation of duties, as the information security officer, I shouldn't be logging into the firewall and playing around. What AlgoSec does is give me the ability to see everything about the firewall, its rules, its configurations, and its usage patterns as well. And so it gives me all the visibility that I need to make sure that we're doing what we should do to keep that tight. I mean, there's no perimeter, as they say, anymore. So we have to be very careful what we're letting in and what we're letting out. And AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer helps us to do that. Absolutely, and it increases our precision as well. As I mentioned before, our firewall rule review was always done manually. And when we installed the appliance and ran the report, we quickly found a half a dozen areas where we were more exposed than we needed to be. So we were able to quickly, and I'm talking something, the manual process used to go on for weeks. But the AlgoSec process, right now, as we develop, as we become better with it, is only a matter of days. 2 or 3 days, we can have a good solid review, and then we can get into very specific details about any rule, any configuration. Again, with the objective of ensuring least privilege. Only the things that are needed to support business activities are allowed. We're a regulated industry, right? Financial services, and we are obliged to at least annually review our firewall rules for risk. Are they too permissive? Are they not needed? Because we have the tool, we're able to do that once a quarter. Before we only did it once a year, now we can do it once a quarter. Another very useful feature of the AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer is it will alert us to changes in firewall rules and configuration. So we have a third party that manages our firewall. AlgoSec gives us notification if they go in and make changes, either to the configuration or the rules, so that we can keep track and we can make sure that only authorized changes are occurring. Yes, we do. For just IT alone, we have 3 primary vendors and a couple others that pitch in when needed. Integration. One of the vendors, how best AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer helps us is to make sure that we allow only what they need, that we keep them to the internal assets, right? So they're external third party. We have high assurance that they're only able to access network assets that are part of the contract. The other vendor, as I already expressed, manages our firewall. And the reason we have them do it is because we don't have the expertise amongst our people. So the addition of the AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer enables us to have that intelligence of what is good and what is less than good, so that we can help keep that third party on the rails, that they're doing good things for us and we have the evidence to prove it. So one of the things that we're working on right now, we're a small branch of a much larger organization in Latin America. And the rules that were set up just allow free flow of information back and forth. Network connections I'm talking about. And right now, with ransomware being what it is, we're starting to review those rules because they're way too permissive. So another way that AlgoSec is helping us is internally to work with our head office to make sure that they are treated with least privilege as well. Something that is not normal, something that didn't happen, just because. I've been with this organization just about 2 years now. All the wide openness of the network communications was just a bad event waiting to happen. So AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer has given us a great ability to dig down into the details, to work at a level above the skills that we already have, to make sure that we are in a process. It started months ago and will continue for several more months, that network traffic in and out of our perimeter is the least that it should be. Absolutely. As I mentioned, AlgoSec gives us a level of expertise that we didn't have within our own staff. AlgoSec showed us that what our staff could do, I wouldn't call bad, but I wouldn't call good enough. And so it's a force multiplier. It enables us to have the expertise that we don't have, but it also gives us the cycles, right? The actual ability to extract the rules, evaluate the rules, assemble them into a form that we can present to auditors if we need to, regulators if we need to. So it helps us greatly. As a tool that has so many features, there certainly are more that we can grow into, but the ones that we're using right now have been a substantial value to us. And that's even been commented by our auditors from one review period into another. The staff enjoy it. There's always that dynamic between security and IT, right? IT has projects to do, serve the business. Security isn't quite seen in that same light. So they enjoy it because they don't have to spend the time to go through the rules and try to reverse engineer what's going on. But it takes care of a lot of the documentation for them, and it keeps them in the zone that they're used to, working with the correspondence that belong to the rule to understand the details. So it's helped us to understand ourselves better, how we operate on the network layer, has saved us time of actually doing the rules. So you have the compliance on the one part, so we're much better with our compliance and audits and regulatory, but we're also better in our security. Two things that the ISO always has to be concerned with: compliance and actual security. So the tool acts like another person on staff, increases our ability to be very fine-tuned on the rules, and we'll be using it for a while to come. We're getting into that, yes. One of our audit concerns was the flat network, and we started to work based on what we already know to create that test segment, if you will. But AlgoSec is what's helping us to validate the traffic that will be allowed into that new segment is restricted to only that which we need. And no sense in creating a isolated network or what we call an isolated network if bad things can still flow back and forth between test and production. So AlgoSec is a tool that's helping us to make sure that we have all the isolation that we need, but we'll also, because of the syslog counters, we'll be able to tell us over time whether we did a good job in the first place, whether the rules that we configured to be nice and tight remain still needed for business purpose. I've seen the capability there, and this is what we're doing. Because I'm such a supporter, right? Because I've seen the value that AlgoSec can bring in more than one organization, I invited the CISO office in Chile to attend a work session with us so that they could start to see what AlgoSec might do for them. I knew that it was on their task list, that they have a need to get into the same area. And so the potential is there that our head office will begin to use the tool, having seen how it's helping us in just our local office. And they need it more because they do have a broader array of firewalls and connections and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. Ooh, room for improvement. That's to tell you, I've been so pleased with the tool. It sounds kind of cliche, but I haven't got to a point yet where the tool hasn't provided for me. This is why I always come back to it. At first, the AlgoSec didn't work with the firepower. It didn't know how to read the logs, and so the improvement's been made, and now the feature that was available on older generation firewall is available on the current one. But that's a problem that's already been dealt with. The setup was quite easy. AlgoSec support was there for us. We worked with them. They did all the heavy lifting. Easy to schedule, very flexible as we got our act together. Right? Organization is important. And continuing even now, we have I'm not sure, do you call them customer success managers or what? But Matt is being terrific, very responsive, always there for us when we need it, quick answers, and the support desk as well. If we raise a ticket, I did have a problem after we installed the A32 version, where I was getting some errors in the email, and the engineers, down into the code, found some code that needed to be corrected. I don't remember exactly what the problem was, but it was done right there in time. I think it was less than 2 hours to find and correct. So the support has been superb. If I were to take out the fits and starts that were our responsibility, the installation was, I think it was less than 4 hours. And then the upgrade was done, because we went from version A30, I believe, to A32. That took, an hour and a half maybe. Very simple, very straightforward. And now when I need to do regular releases, patches we might call them, I'm able to do them myself. It's menu driven. It's pretty easy. Well, one staff would have been sufficient, but I made sure that our IT staff, relative population representation were there so that they understood the tool, where it was going, how it would be used. But it easily could have been done with only one person on our end. Day-to-day basis, I pretty much don't think about it. I think about when I need it, and it's there. If I have a question about an endpoint, if I have a question about a protocol, if I'm trying to resolve audit points about what ports are listening and why, if I have to figure out how do I isolate something more than it already is, AlgoSec is the tool that I go to first to get information and answer some of these questions. In most cases, it's all right there. The rules that I need, all the details are right there. It's been great. It's set and forget. I don't have a lot of Linux experience, Unix experience, at least not in the last 20 years anyway. And so that has been removed from me. Right? The appliance comes, as I said, we connect to the command line. Anything I need to do is menu driven. So it is easily maintained by people whose skill set changed from hands-on to management quite a while ago. Currently, we have 5 people that use it, either to tune the rules or to find out answers to questions about the network and the flows right now. So I know for a fact we're not getting all the value out of the appliance that we can. I know for a fact we're getting more value out of the appliance than we intended when we licensed it. So those are the good things. Visualization of our network, it's helping me. There are diagrams that can be drilled into that help me. When we're small, going over to IT all the time, asking questions isn't always the best thing. It's kind of disruptive, and then I have to worry whether I got the right answer or not. AlgoSec removes those things. I see what is, and I know that it's based on the facts. So, like I said, 5 of us use it. I'm sure that we use it every week, probably not every day. to answer questions, and then we have I see now when I'm checking my email, we're running monthly reports. They're automated, so that we have a good history, and we have the opportunity at any point to identify problems and resolve them. At this bank, no. It replaced the manual solution, which, if you're not a third-tier network engineer, then you're probably not going to be able to get into the details, the nuance of any of these rules and configurations, and so they get glossed over, right? It's more of the firewall review done manually is more of a sanity check. Do we need the rule at all is really the question that gets asked, not whether the rule is done correctly to support least privilege, least access. I've looked at the other options along the way. Recall, AlgoSec came to the market before the alternatives did. So when I became aware of it, when something is good, I stick with it. Why change, right? So I went to the Gartner page and I looked at who the competitors are, and I looked at customer reviews and things like that. But because I've had such good experience with the AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer, I continue to use it. I have found no reason to go with any of the other alternatives. The point being, right? Gartner will tell you, right? The industry leaders. So anyone who's seeing this interview will understand and will be able to take care of that. Our local policy is that I have to be able to compare at least 3 products when I go to management to ask for money. So while I don't have those details at the top of my head, what I can tell you is I did exactly that. I took the 3 alternatives, I brought them to our management team, and I explained the whys and the wherefores, and why I promote AlgoSec. And so now we have it here in our environment. I'm a fan of AlgoSec for the pricing as well. So a couple of things on that. As a small branch, getting any amount of money, right, is very difficult. Less than $1,000 still takes effort. So to be able to get support from my management team for something that wasn't built into the budget, it was something that came up along the way. 2 reasons, right? Asking for money in the first place, and it wasn't in the budget in the second place. And the price came in where we really didn't even have to have much of a discussion on that. So that was very, very good. But there's also, options in what you want to pay for. It wasn't really pushed on me that I have to get all of this or else I can't be an AlgoSec customer. So there's also training that can come in and support levels that come in beyond the product itself. But we did subscribe to the training. We do have the support, as I've mentioned, so the pricing has been very, very approachable, and that's why we have it here. I think in the end, I did a calculation. When I think about the number of people when we did it the manual way, who had to be involved and how long did it go, and did we risk being out of compliance with regulations? There's a big cost to that. It's cheaper operationally to work with AlgoSec than to try to do this manually. What we've learned from using AlgoSec Firewall Analyzer, that we were taking a lot of risk, right? We didn't understand our risk, I guess is the best way to say it, with our firewall. It's good that we relied on a credible third party, but what we saw was that rules could be better configured. And these are our protection to the outside world, between the bad world outside and inside, between our head office and us. I worked for a Wall Street firm, and we didn't trust anybody, right? The big deal now with zero trust, this tool will help us to get there. dialing things down. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Do it. um, yeah, I wouldn't have been with it since 2004 if it wasn't among the best tools. So, I have tools in vulnerability scanning, I have tools in SIMSOC, I have tools for authentication, lots and lots of tools. And as a security guy, I've been doing this since 1997. When you find a product that delivers, you stick with it. And AlgoSec is that type of product. The AlgoSec experience, the company, the product, the support, the people. I want to give it a 10. Nobody trusts that, but they've been very, very good to me. The boss who didn't like spending the money is very happy with the results. I brought it back to him and showed him what we've been able to do past our manual efforts, and it resonates with him. It makes sense to him. He reads the paper. He sees how quickly ransomware can spread across the network. So one of the things that we can do to help protect against that is make sure that we have good segmentation and that only the endpoints that really need to talk to each other are allowed to do so.